Manchester United are currently training in Dublin as we speak, and Lisandro Martinez has been spotted back in training with the squad. I believe Patrick Dorgu is doing individual sessions, but there's a feeling he could potentially be back for the Leeds game. We've got updates on Kobbie Mainoo close to signing a new deal, which is good news. We've got updates on a few transfer links like Shea Charles, Joshua Zirkzee leaving potentially, and more. But there's two real interesting stories coming in today. One on Nagelsmann. He seems to be ready for the Manchester United move. Manchester United starting work on their next manager. And of course, Harry Maguire signs a new deal, which is official. He has signed a 1-year contract extension at Manchester United. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. And welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup show, where I'm going to round up all the latest Manchester United news into a 10-minute video for you guys. First of all, we're going to start with the Maguire news, and then we're going to get into some very interesting stories. But before I dive into that, if you do enjoy today's content, feel free to hit the like button, and if you want daily United updates, feel free to subscribe. Harry Maguire has signed a contract extension. The deal is understood to be a 1 year. It's understood to be a 1 year, and United will 1 year extension. And United will also have the option of extending for a further year. So he's obviously out of contract this summer. He's now out of contract next summer. And if we decide to extend it, we could extend it all the way until 2028. I think this is good news. Obviously, I reported this the other day. Romano said that it was basically done, kind of pending announcement. You know when you get the here we go for Romano, but Man United don't always announce a new signing until like 5-6 days after Romano gives the here we go, because they've got to do a medical and stuff. We kind of knew 5-6 days ago that this was done. We knew for like a month ago it was probably going to be done. They were sorting it. It's like with Mainoo, we know it's probably going to be done, but it's not done. We knew a few days ago it was sort of done. Comes out this morning by Andy Mitten that it is done, and like an hour later, United announce it. Jason Wilcox spoke on the matter. He said, Harry represents the mentality and resilience required to perform for United. He's the ultimate professional who brings invaluable experience and leadership to our young, ambitious squad. And I agree with Wilcox. I think Harry Maguire, we've questioned his form at times, but one thing I'll never question about Maguire is his mentality. Even when he was benched for a big chunk under Ten Hag and that, he never really complained. He got on with it. There was a time where I thought he could have left under Ten Hag, and he rejected money. He rejected West Ham because he wanted to pay out, and I thought, but you know what? He got benched. He came back stronger. I think losing the captaincy has almost done him favours because there's less pressure on him, and I think he's been really good when he's played for us, and I think if he doesn't go to the Euros, that will be a joke. But ultimately, I think Maguire's one of those people that, for me, he's not better than Leach. He's not better than De Ligt. I think Euro will be better than him soon. And, I love Aiden Heaven. And, of course, look, I'd love to bring in a Slaughterback or another centre-back. But Maguire's one of those players where I know some people are like, we shouldn't be giving him another year. He's on high wages, la, la, la. But Maguire's one of those players that I think is just a good person to have in the dressing room. Like, I think with Casemiro leaving, we're going to need leadership. And while he's not got the leadership of Casemiro, he's a good mentality. He's a good person to have in the dressing room. He'd never turn on a manager. He'd never throw a manager under the bus. He works hard. And ultimately, he is a good centre-back. He's been good when he's performed this season. I think, the fact that he was almost hounded out of the club a few years back and he's turned it around, and obviously confidence is a big thing, but he's a solid player. I don't think he's better than Leach and De Ligt, but with Leach and De Ligt's injuries, it makes sense to keep Maguire. If Leach and De Ligt were guaranteed to stay fit week in, week out, and never get an injury, you could question giving him the new deal. But I think it makes sense to give him a new deal with the injuries we have at the back, with the fact that we need to focus on midfield, so we don't really want to be having to sign a Maguire replacement this summer. We need to be focused on midfield. I would go for Slaughterback or Van Heck if they're available for a good price this summer. I think it just stabilises the team. Everyone likes him. He's a good person to have around. It improves the depth because we're likely going to be in Europe next season. And he's a good player with good physicality that's playable. And I think he's deserved his extension. I think he's on less wages, which will be good. But I think he's deserved his extension. And I think depending on how important he is next season and how much he plays next season, if he doesn't play a lot next season, then he leaves next season. If he does play a load next season, we extend it for one more season, which I think is a good deal. It was said by James Ducker that Manchester United were reluctant to lose Maguire's experience, leadership and expertise and still consider him an important member of the squad, and I agree. I think he is an important member of the squad. I think he's a good player to have in the squad. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good depth option. And I think with Casemiro leaving, I would like to keep Maguire and Bruno. I think losing a lot of the leaders would not help next season, especially with Champions League football. But obviously there's one player that we want to sign a new deal, and it was said by Alex Crook that while it's not done yet, he is very close to agreeing a new deal. It is expected that Kobbie will agree a new deal. Now, obviously, he was nowhere near close to agreeing a new deal under Amorim because he wasn't playing. But Michael Carrick coming in, I think, has convinced Cobby to stay, put pen to paper, and they're working on a new deal, and it should be pretty close. I assume even if Michael Carrick isn't the next manager, he's happy to put pen to paper and sign a new deal because Man United have expressed to Cobby how important they think he is. It's interesting how much a manager can change things, because I think if Ruben Amorim was still here, I think we would be losing him in the summer. But he's obviously been playing every game under Carrick, starting every game under Carrick, and he's now close to signing a new deal after that stalled earlier in the season. Man United at the beginning of the season were getting ready to sell Cobby, which I think would have been a bad decision. I think, he's still raw and there's elements of his game that need to improve, but I think he's such a good youngster that he's the kind of person that you want to build around long term. Anyway, continuing into the Nagelsmann news. So I'm catching up on a few things that Ben Jacobs had said on the United stand the other day, because there's obviously been a few stories today about Nagelsmann or Carrick. The feeling is it's between Nagelsmann and Carrick. If Luis Enrique wants the job, United go for Luis Enrique, but there's a feeling Luis Enrique will probably sign a new deal at PSG. We know Tuchel is unavailable because he's going to stay at England, and Ancelotti wants to stay at Brazil. We said no to De Zerbi. De Zerbi came to Man United, and we were like, no, we don't really want you. Because he asked if Man United were interested. It seems to be between Carrick and Nagelsmann, and Ben Jacobs went on the United Stand YouTube channel the other day, and I do recommend watching the full interview, and he said Carrick is firmly being in the process after initially being told he wasn't. When Carrick first joined, he was seen as just an interim only. He is now in that process, and Nagelsmann is the main external rival. So you remember when it was Ten Hag and it was Ten Hag versus Poch, and we knew for about a month it was probably going to be Ten Hag or Poch, and then we got Ten Hag. The situation right now is we know it's going to be Carrick or Nagelsmann. We know it's going to be Carrick or Nagelsmann. They seem to be the Ten Hag and Poch that we had a few years ago, Carrick and Nagelsmann. United expect to have a clear decision or a manager lined up before the World Cup, because obviously Nagelsmann cannot join until after the World Cup. But if Man United will know before the World Cup, is basically what he's saying. He's basically saying, if we choose Nagelsmann, obviously he can't join before the World Cup, but Nagelsmann will be lined up and there could be verbal agreements. And I think if we get to the World Cup and we've not got a manager sorted, it's because it's going to be Nagelsmann. I think if we want Carrick, we will get that done before the World Cup. But I think he will be lined up. I think we will get verbal agreements from Nagelsmann and some agreement to release him from his contract after the World Cup, if it's him, and he'll join later, which does give us a bit disadvantage. He has less time with the squad, and I think his system is quite complex, and that could give us a disadvantage at the beginning of the season, which is the one frustration, particularly if Germany go to the final. But I think we'll know pretty much by June, really. I think we'll know in May. I think we'll know at the end of the season. I still think Carrick maybe edges it, but I think, it is between him and Nagelsmann, and, Ineos might want someone that they see more as a head coach, because Ineos want a head coach, someone that plays a certain way. And while Carrick is doing really well, and I think if Carrick comes third, it's a risk to change that. But Ineos might see Nagelsmann as a better long-term fit in terms of the head coach model that they want. He is a key target, but interestingly, Ben Jacobs did say he's open to taking the club job this summer. Reports have confirmed Nagelsmann is ready for the job. He's ready to, move on from Germany this summer. He's ready for the Manchester United job. So, Nagelsmann is ready. So definitely one to watch. And we know that the main contenders are Nagelsmann, Carrick, and Enrique. And Enrique doesn't seem realistic. Nagelsmann is friends with Bivol and is open to the job. And obviously Carrick, I think, would love the job. Continuing on to other news and other stories, I was on the One Football app and I was reading a report from Team Talk that Manchester United are ready to agree the sale of 35 million sterling as Juventus battles 6 clubs for complex transfer was the headline. And I read the full article, and a few key points from the article I thought was interesting, which I would share. This came from Team Talk via the One Football app. And that is that despite rumours that Zirkzee, last week was willing to stay at United and fight for his place next season because he believes he'll play more of Europe, apparently Zirkzee's camp are actively exploring a move for the summer, and United have told Zirkzee he can leave. In January, we told him to stay because we couldn't find a replacement. Juventus, Roma, Atalanta and Como were all interested in Zirkzee, but apparently Dortmund and Leverkusen have also showed interest in Zirkzee. United want to recoup the 35 million they got for him. I think we get 25 million for Zirkzee. I think he loses a bit of value because he hasn't played this season. I think if Zirkzee had played more minutes this season in the Europa League, maybe you get 30, 35 million. There's a good player in there. He's young. But I think we probably get 25 million for Zirkzee. And then last but not least, David Kent of the Mail has said that we're among clubs looking at Southampton's midfielder, Shea Charles. Shea Charles, obviously, Jason Wilcox links. He's a midfielder, ticks a few boxes. but he had a good game versus Arsenal. He gets linked to Man United the next day. If he did, I guarantee you, if Southampton never played Arsenal, he probably never gets linked to us. You know, it's a bit like the Chris Rigg links, the Hayden Hackney links. Yeah, it's one to watch, but again, I think maybe as a third midfielder we look at it for depth. But I think like the Tyler Diblings and the Chris Riggs, I think United want to go with someone a little bit more proven, but I do like him. Thank you for watching. Bye.